Good day everyone, so here are 3 things that I want to see in Genshin that they should really take from Honkai Impact, and number 1 on my list is that Genshin should show buffs more explicitly. So let's take a very simple example. If you have Kokomi and her signature weapon, you note that the weapon has a special passive once Kokomi activates her elemental burst, but how do you know when it's active? Well, what you have to do is you have to look very carefully at the weapon if you can, and see the 3 little glowing pearls on it, and obviously once these pearls expire, then the passive is also expired. But you can see the problem. How do you know about this in combat? Well, here in Honkai, things are much more clear and much more explicit. So if I have a weapon active, as I'm pointing right here on the screen, I can see a bunch of numbers and circles and meters ticking down, and this immediately tells me what some of my buffs are, which one of my buffs are active. So in a team environment, this immediately tells me when I need to stop a rotation and move on to the next one. This little quality of life would really allow you to keep track of the multitude of buffs. Right, so the next big item on my wish list is to rework the 50-50 system in Genshin. I feel it's an extremely unfair system, precisely because you've got low drop rates for your characters, and even if you do get your character, there's an odds that you'll get something that you don't want. A lot of your primo gems are just sunk in, and you basically get nothing of value for it. And I also feel that because the worst case scenario is so bad, it is not worth it. In contrast, here in Honkai we actually have a pity counter, so you know exactly how many wishes it's gonna take. But even more so, there is no 50-50 system, and instead you have a fragment system which works really nicely. So let's say you've gotten your character within your first 100 pulls. What you now need to do for constellations is get character fragments. You'll notice here that every time I do get the character, I get 30 fragments, but I only need 25 of these fragments or puzzle pieces to unlock the next constellation. What this in effect means is that for every 5 wishes you make in the game, you get an extra fragment. And this is really good, because even if you are unlucky, you're building up fragments. So even if you go to your 100th wish and you finally get your character, you get 30 plus now an extra 20 fragments. So that is in essence 2 extra constellations. Of course, the only downside to the system is once you get past a certain rank like SS, the fragments required to get an extra constellation in air quotes double. So that's the only negative of the Honkai system. But what's good about it is that every wish you make progresses towards you getting the character. It doesn't feel like it was an absolute waste of money outright. And that's why I like the system even more. And also the extra shards and stuff that you can get can be used for fragments and unlocking 4-star fragments on other characters, which is just so good. Right, and last on my list is obviously the design of a proper endgame mode for Genshin Impact. I think currently the big problems we have is that we don't have any combat event that is really transformative enough. In other words, I want something that transforms how I play with a given character, and this type of buff could be something that is rotated out every week, so you can cover different characters. This, in my opinion, would solve a lot of things. It would make the gameplay more fun, and it would also mean that you can balance around the fact that these buffs would encourage you to play certain characters over others. And I think what I would like to pair with this is something more than just the same enemy lineup for every 6 weeks, but a proper end game dungeon that you can really dig your teeth into. And this is what we have in Honkai Impact. It's called the Elysian Realm, and basically it is a sequence of floors that you have to go through. You can gain buffs on every floor, but there are a number of stage effects that can boost the enemies, buff the enemies, nerf them, and you can also choose a lot of buffs for your character. There's a difficulty setting that can obviously scale with your account, and then obviously some weekly rewards that you can get instead of every 2 weeks, which is really good. But what I love about this system system is that every character has a growth path, and you can upgrade your character by repeatedly playing with them. And if you don't know how to play with your character, there's actually a decent in-game tutorial that teaches you the types of ways in which to use your character, which is just so good. But of course, there's more than just that. There's an entire system and skill tree of buffs. So as you play this endgame mode more and more, you can obviously unlock more and more buffs. So the idea is that you start off very simply and you work your way up, and you can do so for a multitude of characters. So right here you can see I'm going to take one character into the realm. There's an entire sequence of sigils and supports and buffs, and there's a lot of strategy that you can use. There are lots of different ways in which you can play. Obviously there are even special skill adjustments for every character. So you can see from an endgame mode there's so much replayability that you have, and the key trick to all of this is to understand what are some of the specific adjustments and to choose your buffs accordingly as you go through the realm. So let me give you a bit of a simple example. When you start off in the Elysium realm, you get to choose a character exclusive buff, and if you choose this very wisely, then your character will be able to do things that they would not ordinarily be able to do. And this is what I love about the system. Obviously you can then choose your next set of buffs. You obviously have to fight the enemies, then you can choose the buffs, and this keeps on going, and obviously the enemy health pool up, and it's just a fantastic system. From my perspective, something like this, not exactly like this, but something like this is really what Genshin needs, precisely because it will just enhance the longevity of the game. Right, that is what I have to say, everyone. Let me know what your wish list is for Genshin, and thanks for watching.